Welcome to Marketplace Live. Let's defy gravity.
Hi, and welcome to this fireside chat with Jeremy Drury, the Director Digital and Technologies / E-Services at Star Alliances. While many of us have been avoiding all unnecessary travel since the start of the pandemic, there's still many of us who can't wait to get on a plane again and travel around the world, or even just to the next business meeting, to go back to some kind of normalcy. As an airborne virus, COVID-19 is presenting challenges for airports and airlines to maintain health and safety for travelers. They're also managing the cultural shift in air travel that has meant travelers have higher expectations for fellow passengers and the airlines who help them soar through the skies. Star Alliance have always been on the forefront of innovation, enabling a sleeker, more streamlined travel experience. They are now additionally challenged with pivoting their strategy in order to get us back to flying in a secure and safety manner. So let's get started. Jeremy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Star Alliance, and your role there?
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. Great to have to be here and talk to your guests. I'm Jeremy Drury, as you just introduced me. I'm the Director of Digital and Technology Services here at Star. I've been working with Star and in the aviation industry for 18 years. I started off my aviation career in this organization as a project manager and have worked myself through to sit in the management team at this point, and have enjoyed every minute of it. I'll just give you a little bit of an anecdote of why I joined and why I believe travel is so important. I'm not aviation specialist. I'm a chemical engineer. I worked on oil refineries prior to the Star Alliance, but what I was a diligent customer and became a gold card holder of the Alliance very early on in the history of the Alliance. And when I saw a job to be part of this wonderful new Alliance creation, I jumped over the fence and moved from engineering into the aviation world. Haven't moved since. You'll probably hear it from many people that once you join the aviation industry, you can't get out. The jet fuel starts running in your veins, and traveling the world and connecting with people, visiting people, is what has driven me over the last 18 years. And Star Alliance, the 26 members of the Star Alliance, has enabled many customers over those years to have the same experiences that I have had, and that's what we aim to do, primarily on a business with a business agenda. And as you'll see through the course of this conversation, that those things are changing quite dramatically due to the COVID situation. But yeah, that's me. I now head up the digital strategy for Star Alliance, and the new innovation areas and innovations that we had planned and still have planned come under my remit, and I'm sure we'll get to discuss some of those in the next 20 minutes.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. I feel like I would love to digress. That's a really interesting track record. In these unprecedented times where COVID-19 has grounded most airplanes, you're working on ways to enable travel again. What are the challenges you're facing, and how has the aviation industry reacted to these challenges?
Well, I first want to say that the COVID-19 has been devastating for the airline industry, for the tourist industry, for the travel industry as a whole. Not to forget our restaurant friends, and those who are providing services in hotels. It's been devastating to us all. So we shouldn't forget those when we're talking about travel. However, for the Alliance itself and the airlines, we've been looking at this in a couple of stages. As it kicked in at the beginning of this year, of course it was what is going on and how can we immediately react to the situation, and that meant as an industry, but also as the Alliance itself, looking to reduce costs quickly, looking to reduce for survival more than anything else, to take us through what we thought at that point would be 3 to 6 months of a problem that we could take ourselves through. So we very quickly got ourselves into a better cash position, and to be able to maintain the business that we have at that point. We moved into a stage of new world thinking. The world had changed at that point, and it was obvious that business travel, particularly for the Alliance, was decreasing rapidly. Although there was a slight peak in the summer of traffic, that has now declined and continues to decline as we go towards the end of this year. But we spent some time thinking about what we should be doing in the new world. How can we support our members and the industry in providing health and hygiene standards across the Alliance? And there were a number of steps which we have never taken. For example, the 3 alliances collaborated together in the middle of this year to come out with industry messages and industry standards in terms of hygiene, which you will now find implemented across the Star Alliance members in one way, and the Sky Team and One World in others. So these are actual things that we would have never imagined happening in the past, but because of COVID, it has really brought us together in that regard. We then went into a stage after New World of coming up with some new ideas, looking at the new ideas as to start to implement them. And as it has turned out, in some cases we may have reacted too early. The COVID situation is now best guess is middle next year. Vaccination, yes, positive. It's a nice statement that we heard in this last week. But that will still have to be rolled out, and as a panacea for the industry, I think there's going to have to be a vaccination plus some other testing that needs to be put in. So we're going to see another 6 months at least, I think, before travel begins to pick up, and we have to bridge that gap before then. That doesn't stop us. We have now got some very exciting news coming up in the next few weeks, which we'll need to be looking out for. But all of that to say, we are now looking at ways to support our customers through this more difficult journey with the highest hygiene standards and the cleanest environment that we can.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm thinking Marketplace Live this year. Our focus is digital transformation in the context of defying data gravity, meaning that it becomes ever so critical and game-changing that data that an organization provides and creates is available whenever and wherever needed, that it can be analyzed and acted on it in a quick and scalable manner. So can effective data management help improve the travel experience today?
Oh, absolutely. There are two ideas that come straight off the top of my head. Demand forecasting for the airlines has is something that is very difficult to manage right now. The demand models were known in the past, and now the purchasing patterns of customers has changed so dramatically that it's very difficult for the airlines to understand what the future demands are going to be and how to build those into their planning models. So data collection and data management at that level is something that is very important to the airlines. It is something that I know that many of the members are struggling with and and working out how to manage the new situation. So from data understanding and data analytics, I think that's those carriers that have invested in those services already are going to come out on top. The other areas that we are indeed looking at is, of course, the whole process of COVID testing and the transmission, not the transmission of the virus, but the transmission of data between the different jurisdictions, so that we can get people back onto aeroplanes. Each of the jurisdictions, countries have, of course, implemented their own guidelines, their own structures around how data needs to be collected, who needs to receive what tests need to be done. But there is difficulty in the industry at the moment of collating all of that data together, so that we can get a common understanding and provide a common experience for the customer. So something we are approaching and beginning to work on is how can we address that data inconsistencies and get the data of COVID tests and COVID testing to the right jurisdictions, so that travel can happen seamlessly when people wish to travel.
It's a very complex topic, and Jeremy, can I ask you, or can I do a loop back to you, because this is one topic that I found so interesting when we had a quick chat before. I did not know that not all test results are the same, meaning that your struggle is also that not all countries are using the same test, with the result that countries do not necessarily accept test results from other countries, or some countries just put a quarantine on arrival, no matter what test results you arrive with. So is that also something that is putting sort of a challenge to you?
Yes, and well, not just to us, but the industry, because the acceptance of a PCR test or an antigen test or a LAMP test does vary on the different jurisdictions, and we've seen cases where the regulations changed within days in terms of acceptance of tests. I was talking to my brother-in-law yesterday, actually, who was traveling down to who was in South Africa. He's just traveled down there on a business trip, and I was very proud that he'd got on an airplane and traveled down, and is doing a three-week stint down there. But he said he was talking to me about the processes, and here's an example. Flying down to South Africa was fine. He had to do a test in the UK. It was defined. He could find the regulations. He had to do a PCR test in the UK within 72 hours of flight, and if he was clear, he was okay to travel and be in South Africa. The other way into the UK, he's going to face quarantine, and there's nothing he can do about that. So the difference in the regulations on that journey are causing him what is a 3-week business trip will ultimately lead to a 5-week away from his home office scenario, and that's what we want to be able to. We want to find ways to avoid that situation, so that a test on departure is valid at your destination point, and that takes you straight into that country without having to spend, varying on country, 5 to 14 days in a quarantine situation. So that's where we need to work. But to understand that, we need to be able to collect data from the authorities, from the regulatory boards, from the customer. We have to have access. There needs to be access to the medical records themselves, so we can have proof, and ultimately that will lead to a COVID-free flight, because we know that everyone on there is COVID negative tested. Maybe I'm being, at least they're COVID negative tested, and that's going to add to the safety of the passengers flying on the Star Alliance and other airlines around the world. That's where we need to get to.
Thanks for further explaining. I just think that's something that, as a normal person, you don't have that on your plate, and that's something that's very complex and at the same time extremely important. What role does innovation play in ensuring that passengers are kept safe?
So I've seen innovation change not completely, but dramatically over the last 6 to 7 months. We're we have high cost pressure, not just the airlines, but all of the airline providers, IT providers, system providers, airport operators. There's a lot of cost pressure, and that has created a new environment for innovation, which is a place which I'd have loved to be in over my career, to be honest. And that is everyone's in a collaborative mood, and that brings a lot more things to the table. Everyone is facing a common a burning bridge which is common to everybody, and that means that has created collaborations that I wouldn't have necessarily believed could have happened prior to COVID happening. So innovation, the innovation capability has changed, but why is it important? Why is it important right now in COVID? Because we're trying to solve problems that we haven't solved before. As an example, focus may have been at the airport on process time efficiencies. We don't have many people in the airport anymore, so getting the throughput isn't necessarily the most significant focus right now. What is going to be the focus at the airport is having a cost-effective process, and indeed offering touchless processes so customers feel safe within that environment. So the direction has changed with innovation to be able to address some of the current customer concerns. We're working very hard in the innovation space. We haven't stopped. We have a partnership with a startup venture in San Francisco. The company is called Plug and Play, and we use Plug and Play to introduce and provide us with contact to startups around the world. And indeed, the conversations we're having with those startups are similar. They are pivoting their strategies, they're pivoting their products, moving them towards more COVID-related or COVID-safe solutions in the travel space. So so from an innovation perspective, the COVID's for me the COVID disaster is not a COVID disaster. It's a COVID encouragement of all those people who've got these ideas and are now putting them into place. So there is some optimism in the conversation.
Nicely put. And one more question to that. Knowing Star Alliance also for their great lounges, I imagine that in order to keep everything secure, you probably also need to do something to ensure that your lounges don't get too crowded.
So one of the relationships that we've forged through our startup relationships is looking at startups that are looking to manage occupancy within the Star Alliance lounges. What we want to make sure is that customers who do come to the lounge feel comfortable in the lounge, and a key requirement of that in this time is making sure that everyone has the right social distance to be able to be comfortable in the lounge. So we are working towards sharing occupancy rates, or maybe even getting to the point where we can share social distance that is currently within lounges, so that people get that level of comfort before entry and can make their choice about entering a lounge or finding some other location where they feel more comfortable. So that is it's a key part of the customer journey for us.
Very reassuring. How has travel culture changed as the pandemic continues to play a part in transportation?
Well, here's a prime example.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No. We're at a conference, and we're not sitting on the same stage together. And we won't be sharing a glass of wine afterwards. That's something that I miss terribly. Not the sitting on the stage, but the glass of wine afterwards. That's happening around the world. People have adopted alternative technologies. Where it was not possible to do business using conference facilities 12 months ago, it's now very possible. And the industry that industry has taken full advantage of the situation, and good on them. That's something they should do. This has played a made a big cultural shift in the decision making, I think, for people when they start to return to travel. There's a realization that there's an acceptance of other forms of communication. I have to say this because I work and I love traveling, and I know from peers and from friends around the world that sitting on a plane and having the 12 hours to switch off and to get away from everything is being missed by many. So I am expecting that there will be a return to travel and to those glasses of white wine after conferences. But that's going to take a little while for people to switch back to that mode of operation. And I think we should also look at taking the advantage as an industry and look at the social responsibilities that we have as the airline industry, and find a happy balance between the two types of technologies. Travel as a technology to meet and greet and have that personal contact, versus these types of engagements where may not be as necessary to make that travel as we thought before. I think over the next 3 or 4 years we'll make that balance right, and we'll be back to having those personal contacts which travel does allow, and will make this world a smaller place again, because right now it's just turned into a very big place.
Very true. As we said before, and you've also mentioned it between the lines, Star Alliance has always strived for innovation in the passenger experience, as well as pushing industry standards to new levels. I'm being curious, and so is probably the audience, what innovations, COVID aside, are Star Alliance currently working on?
So we've pivoted our strategy in 2017, and that strategy was to be a digital alliance and to support our carriers with digital technologies. Prior to that, it was about making sure that we flew to every possible place, or at least every place that's worth flying to in the world, and we achieved that with our 26 members at that point in time. The digital strategy is designed around providing services to the customers, or through our member channels to our customers, so that ultimately, as a customer, you will receive all of the services you need to fly across all of the members through the carrier application of your choice. So if you are a Singapore KrisFlyer loyalty member, and you're very happy with the Singapore brand, you may want to stay within that. You may want to stay within that brand, even if you're flying on one of our other members. So our current strategy is to enable those services, and that hasn't changed underlying everything we're doing. We are still wanting to enable those self-service digital services to the customer and drive that forward. Of course, there are some other additions that we're putting into play, and we are focusing on those digital services, on making the process as touchless as possible, or in your hands as possible, rather than having to interact with other physical entities along the way. So we've just launched with Singapore actually a digital connection assistant, which was launched a couple of weeks ago. Singapore now have embedded this connection assistant within their application, which allows you to receive expediting services should you have a short connection at Heathrow, and it also provides you with guidance through the airport. Our original connection service was a manual process, which meant interaction with other humans, and therefore that may not be comfortable for everybody at this point. So looking at enabling these services within the comfort of your own phone is something that we're very serious about doing, and that, I say, has just been rolled out at Heathrow with Singapore, and we are planning to roll that out at other airports with other airlines over the next year. We've also got it's been in the news already. We are very committed to the biometric processes in the airport, and we'll be launching shortly our first biometric services to allow touchless boarding, touchless security points through different airports. So that is something that is coming down the line pretty soon, and that's again all of these things prioritized to make sure that the customer is going to get to an airport or be able to use services at an airport that do not put them into uncomfortable positions. I'm not going to say dangerous positions. That's not the way it is. But just put them in, keep them comfortable throughout their journey, and make sure that they feel relaxed when they finally get to the airplane. So that's a couple of things that are coming our way. We've also got some innovation, some experiments happening internally, going back to the data that we were talking about earlier. Looking at the data that we process for our members to identify a fraud, particularly in the loyalty areas. So we are starting to explore how AI or ML can identify fraud transactions that are happening between customers, fraudulent customers, and the members, identifying patterns so that we can reduce the impact and the cost of loyalty fraud to our members. So there's plenty of things going on, even though at the same time we're having to be cost conscious and rely very heavily on our partners to help us out to get these things done in these tricky.
Amazing. Jeremy, being a very keen traveler myself, can I ask you one more question regarding the touchless traveling or the biometric topic? How can I imagine it in practice, actually? I would arrive at Changi Airport, and then what happens that I can actually board the plane touchlessly?
So process-wise, we would be looking. You would have enrolled in a Star Alliance biometrics program. The vision is that biometric token, that biometric enrollment will be accessible by any of the members. So you only have to enroll once, and you will be able to use that at any of the members at any of the touch points that they fly through. This is the vision that we're trying to get to. So once you are enrolled, we will have, when it's time for travel, as part of your check-in process, we will recognize that you are coming to the airport on that day, and make sure that the biometric identity is provided for that travel, and only for that travel, to the airport and or the operators of the airport. Make sure that every camera, every touch point that is enabled allows you to walk through with the use of your face. Indeed, in the current situation, with the use of your face as a template, wearing a mask, because that's something we can accommodate.
Right. Thanks for elaborating. That's really exciting. I feel with the latest news of the vaccine on the horizon, and with at least the news of collaboration between the alliances, and to be very fair, with learning about all the actions and efforts that you're undertaking in order to get us back to flying again, I feel positive and hopeful that we will be able to go back to normal at some point, hopefully rather sooner than later. And Jeremy, thank you so much for this absolutely exciting fireside chat.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much for having me here, and I hope that your listeners got what they needed, and they know where to find me if they want to have a chat.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.